back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to do a quick review of one book that I recently read, which is Sorcery and Cecelia, or The Enchanted Chocolate Pot. This was written by Patricia C. Reedy and also by Caroline Stevermer, and they wrote it together. The interesting thing about this book, which I didn't know when I started it, is that it's written in a letter format between two characters, Cecelia and Kate, who are cousins, but the authors actually wrote this story in that exact same format. Each of them was playing a character and they wrote letters, physical letters, backwards and forwards, and they kind of crafted the beginnings of a story. Now, they did do some revision to that story. It's not in its raw form by any means, but they essentially got the crux of the story from writing letters backwards and forwards and not knowing what the other was going to say next, and just kind of having to react to that and respond to that, which I thought was really a cool way of doing it. And this is just the first one in a series, so really excited to carry on with the series. I really enjoyed this. I think it was exactly what I was in the mood for. It's a fantasy of manners story, and it just felt like lots of fun. Each of these characters, Kate and Cecelia, are very witty and very sarky and very able to kind of comment on the gossip of society, which I liked a lot. They are in different places. Kate has gone to London with her cousin Georgina for their season, and then unfortunately Cecelia is stuck back at the house and she is kind of going through day-to-day life there. Now, each of them gets sucked up into this storyline of magic, and that magic is a known quantity in this world. There are magicians and sorcerers and that kind of thing. So it's not unknown by any means, and people can practice it and learn it, but it's not something that either of the cousins has experience with firsthand yet. Now, they do have some secrets in their past that get unlocked as the story goes, which link to magic, which is really cool. And they also get quickly sucked into a storyline where Kate gets kind of taken by this woman and tricked into potentially touching a magical chocolate pot that might harm her because she is presumed to be someone else. And Cecelia is kind of in the background, but she encounters a young woman who has a glamour or spell put on her that makes her more attractive to the men than anything. So these two incidents seem a bit unrelated, but actually they are related. There is a connecting factor, and when they start writing to one another about these strange happenings that have gone on, they realise the links and they start to investigate each end of the story, and eventually those threads all kind of come together and they tie up nicely at the end of the book. What I really liked about this one is that the letter format makes it feel very approachable and very readable and very relatable. Each of the cousins feels very well crafted. They feel like a whole person. They felt easy to connect with, even though personally I didn't live in this time period. It felt like I could connect with them, and I could connect with the way that they just wanted to write to their friend or their cousin and to tell them about what on earth has been going on, because it is such an extraordinary time and so many weird things are happening. And they felt like they relayed the gossip and the drama in a fun way to their cousin, but also they talked about some serious matters, and all of that together helps craft the characters into someone who feels very real and someone who feels very relatable. So I really enjoyed seeing that format play out in a nice way. Sometimes the letter writing doesn't work for me, but I think in this way it really did. Now, I will say that I actually listened to the audiobook, and I do think the audio narrator was really good at kind of bringing the characters to life. So I think I'll continue the series with audio format because that was really, really nice. I would say this is just easy writing to get into. It just feels so easy to fall into the story, and I think I read the majority of it over 2 days, so it was a very quick read, or listen in my case, for me, and I really recommend getting into books that are just like fresh palate cleanser books, and this feels exactly like that. It feels like it's easy to cleanse the palate between two bigger reads, and it just refreshes you, it cheers you up. It's a nice story that kind of helps you connect to the characters, and this is exactly what I use fantasy of manners books for. Is I like to put them between heavier books so that they are sort of a refresher and something really nice and fun and enjoyable to read, and this story is exactly that. I think I will certainly be carrying on with the series. Hey guys, so it's a different day. Since filming that first chunk of the review, I've since read the second and third in the series, so I figured as I've not edited it yet, I might as well just squash them all into one review because I think there's only 3 in the series. I was really excited to go straight into the second and the third. I definitely think that was the right move because I don't know how fresh this first one would have stayed in my mind. I tend to find with Fantasy of Manners style of book, I really enjoy them at the time and then they kind of get a little bit forgettable. I don't think the first one is that forgettable. I think that was a really enjoyable story, but the second and the third I do think fall into that trap a little bit. I actually think of the series that the first one is the strongest of the series. However, I did enjoy book 2 and 3, which I think is more than could be said for some of the people that I follow or am friends with who have reviewed book 2 and 3 and they said they just didn't really like them. I did like them, I enjoyed them. Again, I audiobooked both of them. So the second one is called The Grand Tour and the third one is called The Mislaid Magician. Now, The Grand Tour is interesting. It's following on fairly close after book number 1 ends, but the difference here is that both Kate and Cecelia are actually together with one another. They are going on a grand tour around Europe, various countries, and they are doing that with their partners. Now, I enjoyed seeing them together, but equally, because they're together, they don't have that letter writing approach to the narrative, which I really enjoyed in the first book. So they're actually writing in sort of personal diaries, essentially, about their day, which I did enjoy seeing. I don't think it was a bad move per se, to go like put them together and have that fallback of a diary, but it just didn't feel quite as connected as the letters to me. I felt like it was more self-reflection than it was sort of telling your friend or your cousin about what's been going on. So I kind of missed that more jovial tone, I guess. I missed the familiarity of talking to a friend rather than just kind of recording something. So I did enjoy the second one. I think the storyline is fun. It's a story about how they venture onto the continent and immediately when they get there, the events of book number 1 are still kind of playing out a little bit, but also they are kind of given this object which they don't really know anything about, and they have to try and find out what's going on, and along the same lines they get kind of mixed up in this old ritual that seems to be kind of going on. People seem to be preparing to do something that's quite drastic, and of course they just tend to get mixed up in magical affairs. So the 4 of them and their sort of 2 partners end up mixed up in things, and I did enjoy the adventure. They gallivant all around and I liked seeing them together and seeing how they travelled with one another. I felt like it was still very much in that cozy Fantasy of Manners vibe, which I enjoyed, but I just think it was the lack of the letters that maybe just didn't quite connect me as much as the first book, which was a shame. I did enjoy it, I did like it, I gave it 3 stars, so I wouldn't say it's a bad book by any means, but I just think it's unfortunate that I really liked the first one, and then the second one was a little bit of a letdown. The third one, which I literally just finished today, so it's fairly fresh in my mind, is called The Mislaid Magician, and this one is 10 years later, so it's a lot later than the other 2, and this one actually does revert back to the letter writing style, which I enjoyed. And not only do we have Kate and Cecelia writing letters in this one, but we also have their partners as characters who are writing letters to one another as well. And I did enjoy seeing the extra viewpoints, although they are there in the second book and we see a lot more of that. They're even in the first book, but although they're there in the second book in more of a presence, I feel like the third book is really where you get to know them a little more, and that was quite nice to see. So I definitely enjoyed their input. However, because their input is there, it's not just a story told between the 2 women, and I really just like the 2 women, Kate and Cecelia, talking to each other. So again, I feel like the letter writing being back was a good thing. I did enjoy that, but equally it still didn't quite have that familiarity or I don't know, that closeness that I felt in the first one. It definitely has moments of that, because when Kate and Cecelia are writing to one another, you can certainly see that. The adventure in this particular book is all about ley lines, magical lines that run across England, and how a new invention of the railway has kind of been affecting them. It seems as though Cecelia and her partner are kind of getting mixed up in trying to uncover what's going on because someone's gone missing who was investigating the railways, and they need to go and kind of be part of figuring out what's going on. So their children go and stay with Kate, and although Kate is kind of at home and Cecelia is off having the adventure, they both have magical things happen to them, both at home and on their travels, and I really enjoyed seeing both of them kind of relaying the story. I think the story is always fun. It's not necessarily, I mean, they are high stakes, but they never feel scary, they just feel fun. But yeah, I definitely feel like book number 1 certainly was the winner. It was the one I enjoyed the most. I did like book 2 and 3. I gave both of them 3 stars. They were very likeable, very easy reads, but I don't know that I would necessarily rush to pick up another one if another one were to come out. I do think they could write more in this series because the first one came out in the 80s, and then I think the second one was 2004 and the third was 2006. So it sounds like they had quite a long break between the first one and then the second and third. I don't know that any more are planned, but they've definitely left room for more to come if they fancy it. I like seeing 2 authors working together, and I enjoy the series, and I would still recommend the first one, even if you treat it as a standalone, or whether you want to carry on with the series and just go into it knowing that maybe the first one is the strongest. I'd love to have your thoughts. I've definitely heard from lots of people that the first one is their favourite, so let me know in the comments if you've read them, what you thought. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye all!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.